I couldn't wait long. In just a few days' time, I had made prompt arrangements for my friends to visit me for fine tea and finer conversation.
Not bad. Look at that! High praise coming from Holmes. He'd sooner find fault after the first sip, so this must be something special. You make it sound like a hobby of mine. I simply refuse to accept any compromise in the quality of my tea.
Sounds like my husband. I don't have enough paper to write down all of his demands, of course. Even if I did, there aren't enough hours in the day to meet them all. Ooh, these biscuits are absolutely scrummy.
Are these the last of your tarts, Emily? If not, can I have all of these ones here?
Behave, Kobayashi! It's in poor taste to focus entirely on dessert and neglect the tea. And you can't make so much noise when drinking it.
Is there any reason you're holding your cup with both hands, Akachi? Are you cold, perhaps?
Beg pardon. This is a force of habit. I see I've yet to completely adapt to the ways of this country. It never occurred to me there was a particular way to enjoy tea here till just now.
More notes. In what became a common occurrence for him, Akachi returned his teacup to the table and began scribbling away in his notebook. Don't forget to put your pinky out. Oh god.
Ow!
Oh dear! Was it too hot, Lupin?
A bit, yes.
Is he alright? You should really be more careful, you big dum-dum. You didn't burn your tongue, did you? No.
No. I'm just not very good with hot things.
Thank goodness. You had me worried.
There is certainly something to be said about good manners.
I wanted to invite Jack to join as well, but the timing was never quite right at school. Next time, then.
You still haven't given up, have you? Your persistence with him does impress.
You never know. He could love tea. Then you would have the topic in common for a proper chat. I like that we're talking about Jack on Lupin's route. Poor Lupin.
Perhaps my imagination is duller than yours, but I cannot picture it. I can if he were a suspect in a crime. That would be an interesting chat, certainly.
Really now? What a thing to say about a fellow schoolmate.
Is that a portrait of Her Majesty, Emily?
Yes, it is. She presented it personally to my parents, from what I've been told. It's a family heirloom.
Makes it doubly important. And you own this whole mansion too, don't you?
A fact I'm rather quick to forget upon conversing with her. Oh yes! I've never met a noble so kind. Why, Emily, there are times I'm convinced you're not a noble at all. How, kind of you to say, Hudson.
That appears to be the queen in the photograph underneath it as well.
That's right. My parents took that one with their friends, and Her Majesty stands at the center. I wonder if it was the crown that gave it away.
I recognized your mother right away. Her smile looks just like yours.
Watson feels. After doing his route, ooh, then Watson feels.
Is the gentleman next to her your father? He's so tall.
You know, it just occurs to me. Oh, hello. Does this not look like Earl Beckford? And I only say that because they both have like this weird bang hair that refuses to stay slicked back with the rest of the hair. Eh? Suspicious. I believe it was taken to commemorate the founding of the Harrington Welfare and Education Foundation.
I see. Were your mother and father two of its founding members?
Yes, they were. This photograph in particular means a lot to me. This is the key that will one day unlock the truth behind my parents' murders. I'm sure of it.
Miss Whiteley, is there any reason you're so quiet?
Oh, I hadn't meant to, just lost in thought. Holmes appeared unconvinced, his face cocked in question. I returned it with a forced smile. You're in good company, Emily. Lupin, you've been staring at that photograph so intently that one might suspect you've come under a spell. Or do you see a ghost inside of it?
What? Of course not. Oh, that's hot.
The carpet which you stand upon is a custom order from a purveyor of carpets to the royal family. Any tea you spill will most assuredly stain, so I would ask that you take care.
Oh no! I'm terribly sorry. I'll be very careful.
Please, don't rile him into a fright, Pendleton. One by one, each of my guests sampled the tea and treats, and in that same order did they approve. The photograph stayed with me as one of many treasures my parents left to me. It was my honor to protect it as head of my household, until Lupin stole it. Little did I know it then, but my ability to do just that was to be tested the very next day. Called it. What is this? I doubted my eyes. For a second time, I read the headline with the newspaper in my hands. Arsène Lupin's successor strikes again. His target, the Whiteley family's portrait of Queen Victoria. Oh, dang. Going for that personal touch, Lupin. I invited you to tea in my house. I shall awaken the noble form of Her Majesty from her restful sleep within the Whiteley family residence. Is this some sort of joke? What has you in such a panic, my lady? Look here, one of the gardeners has brought these delightful roses for us. Why not admire their fragrance? It may help to soothe you. Alicia was the first to hear my panic, coming straight to me in a supportive manner. You know, I did wonder what smelled so nice. Lost my place. This is very serious. Look at this headline. Is that today's paper? Oh, good heavens! This is serious. We need to place the portrait somewhere secure right this instant. Take a deep breath, Alicia. Forgive me, my lady. I shan't have allowed fear get the better of me. Do you know where Pendleton is? He is attending to visitors this morning, I believe. We have visitors? Do you know who they are? I didn't catch their names. Pendleton said he would see to them, so I should help you prepare for school. I see. After breakfast, I discovered from Pendleton that our guests were none other than the police, to which I expressed a desire to remain home instead of going to school, to which Pendleton refused. The one time, I thought he didn't like me going to school anyway. Pendleton. He debated until I relented. With my argument lost, I did as asked and went to school. It's all very well to say I shouldn't forget my studies, but I am also the head of this family, and a detective. If I can't forget my studies, then I certainly hope he hasn't forgotten that. Good morning, Mr. Mackenzie.
Good morning, class. Before we begin, I'd like to announce that Mr. Holmes and Mr. Watson will be absent today to assist their fathers with a case. Which brings me to a thought. Trouble seems to have found its way to your doorstep, Miss Whiteley.
I don't believe it's any trouble at all, sir. So Holmes and Watson are gone, conveniently. Unless they're working my case preemptively, but I somehow doubt it. Alright, I'm on my own.
Oh?
Lupin claimed he would steal my family's prized portrait, a challenge to me as a detective. A challenge that I fully intend to answer, and no matter what tricks he has up his sleeve, I will come out the victor.
All right then. Just please, take care not to overexert yourself. Now, let's begin our lessons. If each of you would open your textbooks.
Lessons began and ended without incident. Lupin, how did you keep your snickering under control? Oh, speaking of.
Miss Whiteley,
Yes? Is something on your mind?
are you so determined to catch Lupin?
Oh, very much so.
But didn't, you have that awful ordeal with him before?
Just kindling for the fire. He may as well have asked me to catch him. That scoundrel played me like a fiddle from start to finish. Oh, what humiliation!
Perhaps it isn't my place to speak, but I don't know if you should be doing something so, dangerous.
He does have a point. Well, he just wants you to be safe. You're a dear to worry, Lupin. Truly.
Then...
Please, don't misunderstand. It's kind of you, but I still want to do this. That portrait is a treasure to me and my family. As the head of House Whiteley, I am to see to its protection.
Miss Whiteley, what if you were abducted again? We'd all worry ourselves sick.
An idea then dawned on me. I know! Why not accompany me? Perfect. Flawless. You know what? That's the best plan.
Pardon?
Yeah! Let's see you wriggle your way out of this. I returned to the mansion with Lupin, and when we arrived, the place felt full to bursting with both servants and men of Scotland Yard. Their feverish energy somehow made it feel more crowded than the number of people, as if their very panic took on bodies of their own.
I've done as you asked and moved the portrait. All paintings in the mansion have been draped with black curtains as well, my lady.
Thank you, Pendleton. This way, only a small number of people will know its exact location. I'm really glad I brought in Lupin, and he's one of those few people. There are rather a lot of curious onlookers outside. We can't risk any of them coming inside lest one of them be Lupin in disguise. Could you have them escorted away from the premises? Yes, that would be a great risk, indeed, Lupin being in disguise. Right away, my lady. And do you have any preference regarding the roses received this morning? We received so many, didn't we? I shall leave it to you. Did Lupin send you roses? Of course. And yes, there were so many of them, in fact, the gardener had to bring them inside personally.
Miss Whiteley, if my being here disrupts the investigation, I don't mind leaving.
You can't, Lupin. Weren't you equally interested in him?
No! Not in the least! I was more concerned for your safety, really. It wasn't about Lupin.
Is he truly a detective? He's... what is the word? Passive compared to you.
The side eye he's giving Lupin. Not only is he a detective, but he's been given one of Her Majesty's rings. We're in good hands, Pendleton. I hope so, at any rate. I've never seen him solve a case.
Miss Whiteley, with every painting in the house covered, how are we meant to protect the one Lupin is after? Would you be willing to disclose its location to myself and no, just me.
That's awful, Inspector. I'm trustworthy enough.
It isn't that I distrust Scotland Yard, but I must consider that Lupin may be one of your men in disguise. Telling you where the portrait is hidden would only increase its chances of being found.
That sounds like you distrust the Yard plenty.
And yet she's made her case. Still, isn't there another possibility equal to yours? The gentleman thief could be amongst your staff. You have quite a few maids in your employ. Masquerading as one would be
You needn't concern yourself with that. The maids have been sternly told to return to their quarters once they finish decorating with the excess roses, and they are not to step outside under any circumstances. Is this... Did Lupin send roses? Did he want to ensure she was going to be here? Is this all like some romantic setup? In a weird way? Am I crazy? Don't answer that, because the answer is yes. Should they choose to venture about, I will presume them Lupin and arrest them. And no one wants that.
I'm sure, but he could be impersonating someone close to you. So possible that it could even be you.
Ryan's enthusiasm was as such that he thrust his arm before him and pointed. One of us was the culprit. Ryan believed that Lupin was impersonating... Lupin. I mean, you gotta admit the resemblance is uncanny. Of all people, he suspected Lupin.
What? Me?
You may think your bumbling behavior will fool us, but I've got you now. Hook, line, and sinker!
What an unfortunate thing to have said about you.
I'm not him in disguise. I swear it.
Oh, but that's what any thief in disguise would say.
Having cornered his target, Ryan's enthusiasm grew by twice his usual vigor, whilst Lupin's apprehension also became twice greater. How can I prove to him that Lupin isn't who he claims to be? Ah, I have just the thing. He'll just have to bear with me.
What is... Miss Whiteley?
Pardon me, Lupin, but grit your teeth for a bit. It's to prove your innocence.
Why? Why are you...
I pinched and tugged at his cheeks till we saw all his teeth on display. See, he's not wearing a mask. It's his real face. It can't be Lupin. It's Lupin.
Miss Whiteley, please! Please, stop!
So, do you accept that Lupin is not the gentleman thief?
He is certainly a man who's lived a life of hardship, I suppose.
My plan had worked. Although there was an unfortunate stare of pity from both the inspector and sergeant for the effort. Lupin's cheeks, meanwhile, had become a touch too red. Goodness, I didn't mean to pull so hard, Lupin.
It's quite all right. Ow, 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 ow. I should thank you instead. You're the reason they believe me.
He nursed his cheeks with his hands, but the thanks was true, for the smile he gave me was kind. Well, I've stated my case. I fear I cannot reveal where the portrait is. This way, where it's hidden is still limited to a small number of people. It was odd. I hadn't noticed it all before, but abruptly came the heavy scent of roses. It isn't possible for the maids to have sprayed perfume in here, so how is this fragrance so overpowering? Wait, come to think of it. I politely excused myself before turning into the hallway. The roses were so strong in just the next area over, so why was the scent so different here? As I deliberated, I thought back to what Alicia said only earlier in the day. Could it have been the gardener? I must look into this certainly. Leaving the task of guarding the portrait to Pendleton, I boarded a carriage and left the mansion post-haste. Unfortunate. The men had been left alone without a certain lovely young lady to encourage intimate discussion. The mansion, outside of bustling from the yard's men seeking particular stations, was silent. It was Lupin who eventually broke the silence.
You'll have to excuse me, Pendleton. I appear to have dropped something somewhere in the mansion.
That wouldn't happen to be your ring, would it?
The butler had long been aware of Lupin's regrettable habit from stories Lady Whiteley shared.
I wish I could say I've seen it, but I haven't a clue where it might be. There's no need to fret, however. I expect someone will find and return it in short order.
Maybe so, but I should search for it. I won't be able to think of anything else till I find it.
Without any goodbyes, Lupin retired from the room, flustered and agitated. What piqued Pendleton's interest, then? He didn't know. But one's interest need only be mildly so to prompt an investigation. It did not take long before Pendleton followed. Good man. I'm proud of you. He passed several police officers and into the hall before being alerted by a cry.
Gah!
Who was that?
It was in the direction of the basement. He descended the staircase at a telling urgency. This cry was not the only thing that had the hairs at the back of his neck stand on end. He was certain that several officers had been guarding this very nook of the mansion, and yet he was alone. Had no one else heard what he heard?
A guard was posted at the top of the staircase. Absolutely there was. There's no reason for this door to have been opened.
But the fact remained. It was open upon his arrival. This wasn't the work of the servants, who, for one, would wisely leave it closed. For two, they were elsewhere as instructed.
I can't fathom how anyone was able to trespass into this part of the mansion.
Oh, dang. He's ready. Pendleton removed a pistol hidden within his coat, pointing it inside the room at the bottom of the staircase before edging closer. Lupin, are you getting rid of the butler so that no one, interrupts what's coming? The room was dim and furnished plainly. Here he found the source that first alerted him. An officer was lying on the floor, bound by rope, with a tuft of cloth forced into his mouth to prevent him from any more screams.
Are you all right?
No one else was present. No fellow bound officers, nor would-be villains responsible. Upon resetting the pistol in his jacket, Pendleton kneeled next to the man to untie him.
Who forced you down here?
That is a heavy-ass door. The door closed behind him. From the bottom of its frame came the eerie, familiar sound of air being released from a balloon. Oh no! I've never seen Pendleton worried before.
Curse it! Worse still, this is sleeping gas.
It was leaking through the crack and spreading so rapidly that it wasn't long before the officer, with no means to defend himself, had fallen asleep. Pendleton covered his mouth, but there was little that could be done when trapped in a room. He could feel his consciousness leaving him.
I can't do this forever. I must get to the door.
Body swaying, but still able, the butler reached for the handle and touched it.
No!
A mild pain seized his entire body instantly, and he fell to his knees. Oh, yeah.
The man's even run electricity through the iron of our doors. What intricate mischief our thief plays. I mustn't lose consciousness yet. Not over so small a shock.
Pendleton persisted. Through electrical current, he persisted. Through a muddled mind, he persisted. Through persistence did he manage to turn the handle.
I need to find Lady.
And that was all. Upon turning the handle, he at last slept at the open doorway. Dang! Sweet dreams, dear. Lupin watched for only a moment before turning away. Man, not many people could take down Pendleton, so respect. Elsewhere, Scotland Yard officers remained unaware that such deception had taken place. Those still at their stations stood still, finding nothing, and in some ways hoping that nothing would become something to cure their boredom.
Is it me, Ryan, or is there something fishy hanging in the air?
With all due respect, Inspector, that smell isn't fish, but roses. Floral scents have been rather popular with young ladies, you know.
I know that! I meant that something is clearly amiss. I didn't think much of it when Miss Whiteley left, but even her butler and Lupin have disappeared. Something is plainly...
Never mind that. We need to find Lupin Jr.
Inspector Lestrade and Ryan were the next to hit the ground with a soft thud, and it wasn't long before surrounding officers fell in suit. All discussion became muted at the behest of a wonderful scent. Oh, you're gonna hit me with the Sleeping Beauty? Lupin! Oh, my heart. In the story, it was Sleeping Beauty who slumbered whilst cradled by a castle of thorns. Alas, all the fairy delivers to me among the smell of roses is a throng of poor-figured men. What a pity. Lupin stepped lightly in the direction of the bedroom where the portrait was hidden. There it hung. Gorgeous, enchanting, enticing. He extended his hands to its frame. Ah, but there is a beauty to be found after all. But stopped just short of touching it. How blessed I am to meet with you here, my little Briar Rose. Yeah, go girl! Don't move, sucker. I got a gun, and my butler taught me how to use it.
Yes! Oh, this is great.
Don't move, Lupin. In my own hands was a pistol I had borrowed from a sleeping officer. How did the sleeping gas not get you? I stood at the entrance to the room, weapon pointed, legs apart in a fierce stance. Lupin looked not the least bit disturbed. That is a dangerous weapon, Revolveress. It does not suit you. Perhaps you've forgotten, but I am a detective. If you think I'm just a simple, defenseless girl of the nobility, then you shall regret it. You were the one who delivered the roses this morning, weren't you? Did you like them? I made certain there was an excess in red, the better to convey my love to you. What a waste! Why would I blush over flowers when it would lead to the theft of my family's portrait? Stay calm, Emily. You can't let him frustrate you. I confirmed that the gardener from this morning was an imposter. You used the roses for 2 reasons. The first was a ploy to get inside. Alicia mentioned to me that there were so many, the gardener had to assist her in bringing them in. He sounds like a true gentleman. That was when you were able to confirm the location of the portrait. But you moved it, did you not? Even if I, by your own accusation, learned of the portrait's location as this gardener, my efforts would be for naught if it has been moved. The thief remained emotionally uncornered. Throughout the engagement and my irritation, he watched me with amusement, with eyes half-lidded above a guardless smile. And so you've explained the second reason. You made it so you would discover its location again where it moved. You filled the entire mansion with the scent of roses. But upon infiltrating the mansion as the gardener, you used perfume to affix an entirely different scent to the portrait. The area nearest to the portrait smells completely different to everywhere else, and I possess no such perfumes in this mansion. The scent of roses masked the sleeping gas as well, leaving Scotland Yard without any idea of where it was coming from. I'm sure you thought your brilliant plan was foolproof, but I'm more clever than you think. I learned a thing or two from my life as an upper-class lady. I must say I'm very impressed that she deduced all that. For the sake of argument, I will assume the role of your sneaky gardener. How would I have sauntered through all your servants to apply the perfume without anyone noticing? Why must I entertain the question? You're a gentleman thief, yes? Creating falsehoods is what you do. Switching from a gardener to a servant would be child's play to you, would it not? Our dance continued. I watched Lupin as he watched me, waiting for him to react. He did. His shoulders took on a different drooping than one of relaxation, as did his smile twist narrowly to one of defeat. Well done, my princess. Then I should propose another question. My hope was that I would stumble upon you, your face in blissful sleep, accompanied by the scent of roses. Yet here you stand. My hopes are dashed. Why is that so? Had I entered the mansion even moments earlier, your hopes would have been realized, I'm sure. I owe it to my mother that they weren't. Rather, I owe it to her hand glass. Just before stepping into the mansion, I realized that I had left it behind in the carriage, so I hurried back to go and collect it. I see. The goddess Fortuna smiles down upon us both, then. We make for a smart match, don't we? My fortune is your misfortune, Lupin. I won't allow you to steal my portrait! It means the world to me, and I will protect it! Brave words from a woman who hasn't cocked the pistol she points. What? But I have! So you did. My mistake. Ah! I was startled by the weapon flying out of my grip. A culpritous playing card lay next to it on the floor. Knowing it to be my only advantage against Lupin, I dived to retrieve it, but my fingers couldn't even touch it before it was kicked away. If only I had moved sooner. What a tragedy for you, Emily, that my style should include finding the most entertaining way I may deceive my opponents. Well, I wasn't entertained. Now, you needn't pout that bottom lip. My thinking was that you would suit this more than any pistol. To his words, he produced an immaculate red rose. Whatever the scene, Lupin's smile wouldn't leave him. And, with the refinement of a prince, he glided to me and offered me this gift. I would have preferred he threw it in my face. I've had enough of your heartless games, Lupin. All my fury compounded into the hand that smacked his own aside. Ow! It was my next mistake. I knew at the moment a burning pain seared my palm, that which could only be alleviated by pressing into it with my opposite thumb. Of course. Oh, of course a rose from him would have thorns. Naturally. I hate this. I fell for another one of his stupid tricks. Just how many times must you make a fool out of me? Man, this guy thinks of everything. Even asking became, quite suddenly, an effort. With each word, my body grew heavier. No! Does this rose have something in it too? I could support myself no longer. My body, quaking with weightlessness, dropped forwards. I'm sorry to put you through this, Emily. Lupin caught me before I crashed to the floor. No doubt you won't forgive me for this theft, but for my own end I must carry the burden of being cruel. I expected the last thing I'd see would be that infuriating smile, but there was no such thing. A man different to what I had come to think of the gentleman thief. A man who, from all I knew, was a pretentious lawbreaker with debonair trappings, looked at me with regretful eyes. I only observed it as briefly as time would allow it. As I breathed in, a musky scent enveloped the room, reached my nostrils and bid me a restful sleep. A very restful sleep. There were many triple dots. The next thing I recall is someone shaking my shoulders. It took only moments before I opened my eyes to see that Pendleton was the one responsible.
My lady, are you unhurt?
He asked, but in my stirring state it was difficult to comprehend the question or respond thoughtfully. Though I said nothing, my eyes went from dull to focused. My goodness, I got so much air, excuse me. Ugh, okay, now start over that sentence. Though I said nothing, my eyes went from dull to focused, regaining their clarity enough for him to understand I was well. I sat up. At some point I was moved from the floor to a bed.
I am so deeply sorry, my lady.
I couldn't help but notice that Pendleton, who rarely expressed disturbance of any kind, addressed me between irregular breathing.
Lupin has stolen the painting, just as he said he would. I couldn't be more ashamed of myself.
And I was put to sleep like everyone else, Miss Whiteley. I wasn't any help to you at all.
It was then that I saw no painting on the wall where one should have been. In its place, much smaller, but hung with equal care, was the Queen of Spades. So he did it. And I let him. I let him steal one of my family's heirlooms. I wondered if I should have been angry with him, but I wasn't. What I felt was anger, certainly, but it was more towards myself. In the clearest of ways, he did what he said he would, and I did not. But I don't understand why he looked so sad then. Why? Recalling that moment made me look down at my injured hand, which, to my surprise, was wrapped in a bandage. Pendleton, were you the one who did this?
I'm afraid I wasn't.
Then it was him. No matter how I reasoned it, I could not understand what Lupin was thinking.